You know, if somebody had told me, or if I had been made aware of the fact that I could just make my own island and attempt to turn it into its own, like, sovereign nation, yeah, I think I would have, for my midlife crisis, I think I would have skipped the whole moving to California thing. Nobody tells me anything around here. Cue the music. Hey, what's up everybody? How's it going? How y'all doing today? Welcome back. So for today, we are talking about a movie called Rose Island. And I have to admit, upon like first glance and reading the synopsis, this movie, I really did not think that it was gonna be anything even remotely special. But as it turns out, this movie was much more likable, more relatable than probably the majority of the movies that I saw last year. Like, who'da thunk? And the basic plot of the movie, it takes place in Italy during the 1960s, and the main character is this guy named Giorgio, who's a very dorky, but also a very creative engineer. And then at one point, the dude actually realizes that he can physically make his own island, and then he sets out to go and do that. So he calls up one of his buddies, they start putting things together, start figuring out logistics, and then he goes and makes his own island, and then tries to make it its own kind of sovereign nation. And yeah, that's basically it. There's a few subplots here and there. There's like a romantic element, and then there's his best friend who like stole a bunch of money from his old boss, and then there's a whole bunch of other stuff in there. But it's basically about a dude trying to build something. And you want to know the wildest shit about it is that this actually happened. This is based on real things that actually took place. And I was being serious earlier. If I knew that I could just make my own country, what are we doing here? Why? And more importantly, the real question is, how come nobody else ever tried to do this? Like, you would think that, Elon Musk or Richard Branson or somebody would have tried to do this by now. Like, makes total sense. But anyway, as it stands, I was not expecting a lot out of this movie. This is one of the better movies I've seen all year. I was shockingly surprised at how fun this movie was. And if I were to draw a comparison, this movie really reminded me of this other Philip Seymour Hoffman movie called Pirate Radio. I think it was called Rock and Roll Boat, or The Boat That Rocks in like some other countries or something. But this movie reminded me a lot of that because it was essentially about a bunch of characters who were doing something they probably shouldn't be doing. It's not totally illegal, but it had this kind of youthful like resilience to it. Like, hey, we're gonna give it the old college try. And it was just so sincere, and it just, I don't know, it was just very charming. I wish I could come up with a better word than that, but just both the movies, they had just this youthful ignorance about just wanting something to be better, and they just not understanding the possible ramifications of it. It was just so, nice. And to be completely honest, I don't have a whole lot of negative things to say about this movie, really. I mean, sure, the movie could have been a little bit funnier than it was. Not all the jokes landed perfectly. Maybe they could have used a little bit more, like, character chemistry or done a little bit more work, like, as far as the characters are, like, cohabitating together. And really, the only other negative is it has to do with a car that the main character invented. Or not really invented, but, like, that he built on his own. At one point, there's something that happens that has to do with that, and the consequences of it are really not, like, explained. I don't know if they particularly needed to get explained, but it was one detail that it was just kind of like, oh, well, something should have happened there, but it didn't. But again, minor nitpick. Besides that, this movie is just a giant bundle of fun. Because at the end of the day, it's really just about, this is essentially about a little kid playing with his Legos, but the kid turns out to be an adult, and those Legos happen to do with chemistry and buoyancy and stuff. And it's also relatable because the main character has a girlfriend who broke up with him, a while back, and he's just kind of like a little heartbroken, and he's trying to do this as like kind of a coping mechanism. And just this sheer youthful optimism that this guy had to carry out a goal. And he was just so like laser focused on it, and he was, his determination made him endearing and that much more likable to me. And aside from a couple of the other character relationships, I thought the main guy and his kind of back and forth with his ex-girlfriend, I thought that was all very craftily paced throughout the movie. And on top of just being an overall, just a generally interesting story, I thought all the characters that they attempted to introduce, they didn't delve too far into the characters, but each character I felt like had at least one little moment. Because this main character essentially just puts together this island of misfit toys, and you get slowly introduced to these misfit toys, and they all have these really kind of relatable, quirky, interesting things about them. And each one of the 5 kind of core people that stay on the island, they all have little reasons for why they have to go to the island, or why they feel they have to go to the island. And just the way the movie tries to negotiate each one of their personalities and which one is like trying to take charge under certain situations. I liked the group dynamic that they had overall, even though one of the characters they kind of sidelined for most of the movie. And I can take the point about character moments even further, because even the characters that you dislike in the movie are the ones that are the kind of the quote-unquote villains of the film. Even all of them are given at least 1, 2, maybe even 3 moments where it was just funny or they come off stupid. It was just very, they had this kind of romanticized relatability that every single character had. Somehow, I don't know how they pulled it off. Because the main character and his little band of misfits just kind of want to be free. And the guys, you know, in the Italian parliament are just like, we're trying to do our jobs, we're trying to make sure people are safe and all that other stuff. And the movie happened to have some pretty good music in there, and the soundtrack was pretty great. I didn't recognize all the songs, but again, they fit this very, very youthfully vibrant tone that the movie gave off. And as somebody who does not speak Italian very fluently, I can say that I did enjoy the acting performances, because from what it appeared, they seemed like they kept with the entire tone of the film also. And just from a general standpoint, the movie's just cute. And it's a little tragic to start with, but I mean, it's very, very forthright. It's just the sincerity. I can't stress enough, the sincerity that this movie had. I'm having trouble putting it into words, if you couldn't tell already. And the last thing I'll say is that I quite enjoyed the ending. Just the tone, the camaraderie, like all the stuff that happened there. So all other things being equal, after everything I've said, this was a really, really fun movie. It's not perfect, but I had a really surprisingly good time, and it left a really, really, it just left this like happy, bubbly feeling after I was done. So I think for a score overall out of 10, I'm gonna go pretty high. I think I'm gonna give it like an 8.9 out of 10. I can definitively say with all honesty that I had such a nice time watching this movie, and it was just pleasant, it was upbeat, it was just good. This movie was just flat out good. Good-natured, well-intentioned, just good. And I think we need to see that a little bit more. But anyway, guys, those are my thoughts. What are your guys' thoughts? Have you seen this movie? Have you heard of it? Do you know anything about the true story? Hop in the comments. Let me know what's up. Other than that, if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, share, you know, all the other YouTube type of shenanigans. And I will catch you guys next time.